Hello, everyone. Warm welcome to Big Talk live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. My name is Adikat Michael. Thanks so much for tuning into the program and joining us tonight. Whole lot of concern regarding the recent cabinet reshuffling, which was announced on October 23rd, 2024, last week. It has ignited waves of criticism and has raised the profound questions about Tinubu's administration's dedication to genuine reform. While others have described the reshuffle as a strategic decision aimed at repositioning the government and public frustration with perceived lack of accountability in the core economic ministries and casting a long shadow over President Tinubu's vision, it is actually in a country that has been real with high inflation and depreciating naira and widespread insecurity and soaring fuel prices. Nigerians are not just asking for change. This time, they are demanding the change that addresses these pressing issues at their root. What stands out from the reshuffle is not just what changed, but what remains unchanged. Tonight on the program, we'll look at the political considerations. Is it that some of the ministers were due to non-performance, or it was due to some political reasons for the sack of some of the 6 ministers? There was also a concern about the Minister of Defense, Power, Petroleum, Finance, which others probably feel that their job is not good enough in terms of performance. While the yardstick for the measurement of those ministers that were sacked have not really been expatiated, there are a whole lot of concern about how the economy can move from where we are to the next level. A concern on President Tinubu's presidency has continued to be the concern and the cause of many stakeholders. The sacked ministers like Minister of Education, Women Affairs, and that of State of Housing and Youths has continued to be, and the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Betta Edun, which was also pointing to an indication that they were assessed and they have had reasons for why they were shown the way out of President Bola Tinubu's cabinet, which in no way is not pointing towards one direction on the impact of the nation's economic health, which is the much concern of Nigerians. What concerns the people are ministers whose action can bring security or bread and butter on the table. So while you spare some of the ministers like that of the Defense, Finance and Power who are in charge of the critical sectors that are killing the country, with all the crises in the petroleum industries, which some of the refineries have refused to work, and the Minister of State for Petroleum is still doing a good job according to what the President has scored. But in all of these excess, the Nigerian people are more concerned about how we can move from the inflation that we are, issues of high interest rates, the currency devaluation, the issue of hunger, the issue of inequality, the issue of high taxes and unemployment, which are standing the economy on the head. It means that the president has a whole lot to do and they part ahead of the president. So look at, if they have reshuffled the cabinet tonight, what more and what is next? Is it just enough to reshuffle the cabinet, just as we're calling, many Nigerians were calling for the reshuffling of the cabinet? What is the task ahead? What is involved? What would the new ministers do differently from the ones we've had for the past 16 months? What as the merging of ministries would do in terms of cutting costs of governance? These are the questions many Nigerians are asking and are criticizing the capacity for us to move from where we are to the next level. Tonight, I'm being joined by a PDP chairmanship candidate in Kwara State, precisely in our local government area, Saudin Lukman. He just is live on the program to give us a perspective to this issue. Thanks so much for joining us, Honorable.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be with you on the program.
Thank you. Let me first take your mind back to the elections. We probably will say those who fail the election sometimes are always saying, I did not fail the election, the mandate was stolen, my mandate was stolen. Was that the case? Again, you've lost out in the chairmanship race at the Kwara State, precisely of a local government area. What was your own case?
My case was a daylight robbery. Mine was not a stolen mandate, but a daylight robbery of the mandate, because the people were not allowed to actually go to the pool.
What you mean there was no poll? There was no election? You didn't see election materials?
On the election morning, there was no material. Where we are complaining, the state electoral body was giving us hope that they will reschedule. It's a logistic problem. Early in the next morning, we just saw the announcement that the election, the winners emerged. So everybody was shocked. But we felt it's one of the administrative rascality displayed by some governors who lack respect for the rule of law. And we are optimistic that this case will also come to an end in this our great country. Because in a nation where people have no respect for rule of law, it is very dangerous. So that's one of the reasons why we felt the country has not been where we're supposed to be. And one of the major things that is causing our setback as a nation in terms of every sphere, both economy, political, and security, is the fact that some people felt they are bigger than the law. The law are meant for some people, some people are above the law. So these are the major problem. In my case, as far as Kwara State is concerned, it was obvious that the governor did not allow the election to hold.
That those that feel because you are of PDP, if you also go to some PDP state, the governors were doing same, and it was just a normal ritual.
Just generally, that's what I just said. Not so you say there is no respect for rule of law. Governors have formed themselves to become a demigod, who believe they are alpha and omega. Whatever they say is final. We not ought to be. A governor does not make himself. People made a governor. The governor must also respect the people. But in this case, in Nigeria today, many of our governors does not have respect for the people any longer. So far they get that power, they felt they're above everybody.
Is it because you felt elections?
It's not, this is a general perspective that has been for long. Even in the general analysis of the affairs of this country, we'll discover that governors, irrespective of the party, governors generally, they aggravate a lot of power to themselves. And they are not democratizing the power. That is why we are having problem in this country.
So would you say INEC is better than the State Independent Electoral Commission?
In rating, you rate INEC 70%. You rate the State Electoral Commissions 10%.
That's very poor.
Extremely poor. That is why when you see National Assembly raising a bill recently that they should transfer the mandate of conducting local government election to INEC. It's not that INEC is perfect too, but it will be more better. In the case of INEC, you have a process before you get a result. In the case of state electoral bodies, there is always no process. They are less concerned about the process.
No electoral material, no ballot boxes.
In Kwara, for instance, where I contested, I was a contender in Kwara, a prominent contender for that matter. I'm telling you, my
so you would have won the election if the election was on ground?
It is obvious. It is obvious.
If it was a one-man, one-vote election?
It was even with a little bit of manipulation, I would still win. If election had happened at all, no matter the level of manipulation, I will still win. The margin may not be wider if there is manipulation the way we are perceiving.
Do you feel the APC candidate was not strong in your local government?
It is obvious. It's not about the candidate. It's about the administration that have been in power for the past 5 years that have nothing significant to prove to the people that actually brought a change or relief to the people. So people are yearning to have another change. That is why you see when they lean towards the opposition, it was the fear of this obvious embarrassment for the governor and his party that made him to go the other way, the undemocratic tendency, and announce his candidates. So
all right. Tonight, I mean, we've been interacting over the issue of local government elections, so we probably may not have a proper direction to that until we look at issue of electoral laws and how we can get elections right. Because those that also argue that it was a shabarene not just to APC, PDP, even APGA in Anambra State and all of this concern. But let's get to the business of the day. We understand how critical these issues are. We were brought to this time many months ago. Even you are joined to said, "Oh, President Tinubu, it seems your cabinet are not working. It looks that the men you selected to do the job are not doing their job very rightly." And the president hit to the core last week. We reshuffled some of the cabinet, showed the way out to some others, brought some new persons in, merged some ministries together, created new ones that probably are necessary for the economy or for the country. But in all the indications that those are feels it's just a political solutions, a temporal solution without impact directly to the people. Are you sharing that views?
To be honest with you, obviously the policies of this administration have not started reflecting on the well-being of Nigerians, and that is why there is yearning, there is agitation, and there is protest at all corners. If you look at it critically, two things are actually causing our problem as far as we are concerned in this country today. The post-subsidy era, we are yet to balance, to actually come to the reality that now there is no longer fuel subsidy in this country. Secondly, is our fluctuation of our currency. It has not been stable. If you look at this critical policies. These are policies Mr. President actually declared in haste. Everybody has condemned the pace to which Mr. President announced.
But even your
this
party
policy.
has subscribed for subsidy removal.
Yes, every party knows that subsidy is not sustainable for the economy.
So
but
isn't that
the timing,
do we not have to take pens for the subsidy to go?
That is what I'm telling you. You know, we have experienced similar things in the past. In the past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, we had a similar problem. Nigeria is supposed to have learned from the past mistake. When the government decided that we want to promote our local agriculture, and they decided to create a special funding for rice farming from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Immediately, this policy was announced. Just the monetary funding for the mass production of rice locally to boost the local rice production in Nigeria, they went ahead and shut the border. Even when the rice has not been cultivated. This was the genesis of rice scarcity in Nigeria and the inflation price on this rice. We have to take through this pain until rice grows. When the rice grows, when we are expecting harvesting that's supposed to come down, they started talking about insecurity. Some rice farmers even claim bandits have invaded their farmland. They could not go back to the farmland to harvest the rice. And that is why we continue to suffer rice scarcity. With that experience, every government in the country must understand that before you pronounce a policy direction, you must have put in place adequate measure that will ameliorate the sufferings or the pains of the people.
So you feel the measures are not enough?
It's not enough.
Or they are putting,
Like
they are saying that indicators are showing that GDP is rising, inflation, things are working from all indications of Nigerian Bureau of Statistics.
This is not the first time a government come up to remove subsidy, including President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today. Then he was opposition leader. He also joined us to condemn the hasty pronouncement of subsidy removal by President Goodluck Jonathan. All of us against it because we felt Mr. President then have not put in place adequate measure to actually ameliorate the suffering that this will come with. For instance, everybody requested, every sane Nigerians, if subsidy must go, so far we are producing crude oil. If we have a functional refinery, no matter how, our importation will reduce in terms of the consumption. Definitely the price will not skyrocket. But when the refinery has not been put in place, you remove subsidy. How do you think we're going to survive with this economy? That is one of the reasons. We expect Mr. President as he's coming now. That's all of us are having reservation for that pronouncement at that time. We know it must go. Every party say it must go. But the pace, we expect Mr. President to have sit comfortably, consult the stakeholder within the sector, make proper investigation, and pronounce his plan and seek for cooperation of the people involved. And then we will not pronounce it. By then, possibly, like this Dangote refinery must have been consolidated to start working. And extract all the gridlock that may hinder its effective performance. Such as this crude oil swap that was becoming a problem, using Naira to take the crude oil. All these things must have been ironed out before a final pronouncement of subsidy removal. That might have not brought about this hardship. That is one. Secondly, look at the floating of Naira. There was an insinuation from some quarters that IMF was the one that actually pressurized the government to actually most of these monetary policies. They are external factors. We have peculiarities. No matter how, these are the areas to everybody have expressed reservations about these policies that are actually responsible for our woe. A country that is producing less, we imported almost 70% of what we consume.
But now the government are now saying that we are exporting more than what we are importing.
But
is that the reality?
That is a paper pronouncement. In the reality, you should know what has changed in terms of production in this country. Aside from vehicles, that we now have a reputable companies that are producing for us. Even the Nigerians are still looking for basmati rice to eat. Is it produced here? Is it produced here? The foreign rice is still what the Nigerian customers still seizing on daily basis that Nigeria keep demanding for foreign rice for consumption. So what has happened?
So all the economy indices shown, and it looks at inflations and the GDP is improving from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, is not what is on ground.
It is far from reality. These are the things we are trying to.
But the government said they are trying in this regard.
Truly, the federal government has a very good policy, like I've said. they have shown commitment, a practical commitment. They want things to work fine, but the implementation approach is not giving the expected results.
How best would have they done that? They have increased allocation to state government. Isn't it the job of the state governors to also...
Those are the problems we are talking about. You cannot imagine a situation whereby we know that one of our major problems is this factor of this PMS. Now, federal government has gone far to introduce alternative energy that will actually bring succor to the populace, which is the CNG, compressed natural gas. Government has set up a presidential initiative that are doing a lot of works to sensitize the people, get the infrastructures, and get this thing working. But what is the role of governors? So far, so good. Federal government have imported good number of CNG buses into the country, trying to push it to the NURTW, road transport workers, all these mass-based organizations. What are the state governors doing? It seems there is no coordination between there is no synergy between the federal government and the government. That's why all of us, because of us who are concerned citizens, are saying the governors are not helping this administration. And they must understand the fact that the failure of Mr. President is also their failure. Because nobody is a citizen of federal government. Everybody is a citizen of a respective state. Whatever good or bad, we're still coming back to the root. So there must be a clear synergy and implementation strategies on every policy of government from A to Z. That is from the top to the bottom. So what we are trying to let you know, understand is that as a citizen, with all the effort of Mr. President, look at it. The area of energy now, we have clearly seen it. Mr. President went ahead as far as much as to compel NNPC to sell crude oil to Dangote refinery using naira. If the government is interested in profit, will it have pronounced such policy just to make acquisition of crude oil for Dangote refinery easier? And looking at it, that if he's buying in naira, then Nigeria will be taking also in naira. If it is dollar, he has to also go and source for forex. Sourcing for forex will also put more pressure on forex demand within the country. These are the extra miles the federal government is going to help the citizen to feel the comfort. Now, what is the complementary effort of the states to commit themselves in this process? Look at it. At this level, one of the major problems or the resultant of all this is that majority of the companies have downsized their staff. Unemployment rate is increasing. But look at it today. What is the state government doing to generate employment? We are not talking of empowerment of a mega, giving somebody bicycle, giving somebody Okada, is that a reasonable empowerment that Nigeria requires now? A lot of extra effort is expected from the state government to complement the effort of the federal government if we must get this right.
Because with fairness to the state government, some of the state governors will tell you that inflation has also affected even allocation. That if, for instance, you were receiving these, and now due to inflation, you have to pay more in order for you to actualize some projects. So that's the reason why they said that some of these allocations that have been increased by the federal government has also been affected by inflation. It goes back to one thing, that federal government at the center are the ones to manage inflation. They took the tough policies of subsidy removal, they took the policy of floating the naira, and they are so responsible for this. But let's get to the direction of the ministers that have been hired to do the job. That those that are having a concern that there is no how government would have reshuffled the cabinet without looking at, Ministry of Defense, without looking at Ministry of Power, without looking at Ministry of Petroleum, without looking at Ministry of Finance and all of that. That it looks at their performance is a critical sector, and their performance ought to be enough. And those that feel that those that were sacked were politically motivated.
And I must tell you, it's not completely correct, because there is perspective to every issue. If you have observed this country and this administration from the inception, they have witnessed a lot of turbulence, particularly from the youth angle. October, between 1st to 9th of August, there was a call for national protest, end bad governance, which was actually provoked out of the fact that young Nigerians felt they are suffering. Economy is not being nice to them, but the political class are not actually living in that direction. In a situation where we ask us to pacify, we ask us to exercise patience, to bear through this policy, that things will go. You still go to National Assembly, you see a bloated figure of money being allocated for this and for that, for frivolous things. It shows that citizens are only the ones who are being encouraged to endure, while the political class have just living large, you know. And the young people felt that in this country, despite the fact that we have anticipated a change, before this time, there is no longer advertisement of employment in Nigeria. What we hear is replacement, which actually made it difficult for son of nobody to actually access job. So these are the part of the yearnings of the young people. And the government do everything they could do to persuade the youth to go off the streets, introduce a lot of policies that they have, the incentive programs and the empowerment programs they have actually started, so that Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, you see the special loan being raised by SMEDAN, you see the education loan fund, a lot of policies that the fact it will bring relief to the populace. Now, immediately they crossed through that, they came back again, fixed 1st of October for issues that has to do with the same bad governor, headband governance protest. Now, if you look at this genuine concern coming, it is coming from the teeming population of young Nigerians. And what are their own direct complaint is the fact that the youth is not feeling the impact of the government. So if you were the president, where do you supposed to address first? It tells you that youth ministry need to be rejigged. Because if there has been an engagement, sensitization enough, the young Nigerians should know what the government is doing to make life easier for them. Other than going to the street, the government now need to speak through the man.
Is it about engagement? Is it about policies? Because there are those that refuse even changing Minister of Youth or doing merging whatever you want to merge. That the much extent, I mean, the concern is that they still go to the market to buy things, and inflation is still facing them.
That's what I'm coming there. You should understand if the genesis of the problem, which I've earlier mentioned there, is this alternative, until there's credible alternative to PMS as a means of transportation in this country.
No, I'm not just actualizing on that.
Inflation will not be controlled. And the government have delivered its part to some extent in terms of this alternative energy. We now are expecting the state government to complement. If they complement, definitely by the time we substitute commuter transport with CNG, the price of food will automatically drop.
So
the major cause of inflation is the PMS. Until there is a credible alternative, functional alternative to PMS as a means of local or interstate transportation system in this country, we may not go out of this inflation. Now, the federal government have put its own effort, they have laid their card by introducing CNG, brought in buses. We are expecting the state government now to come in and complement so that there can be the impact of this alternative at every levels. If this happens, inflation will be addressed. And amidst this inflation, like you rightly mentioned, allocation have increased to the state government.
Now
there are a lot of intervention funds that are going to the state government.
Let's stay on the issue, because in as much as we are trying to also share, some of the blames to the state, that those that are having a concern, because you were just pointing towards the direction of the Ministry of Youth, for instance, that the ministry were not doing enough to engage with the youth. It means that they were far from, engagement with the youth. And I was asking, even if we have the minister now that will have to come out and talk to Nigerians and talk to young people, this is what government are doing, this is it, continue to decide patient, that those that feel, would this stop hunger? Will it stop the price of food at the market? Will it stop the prices of fuel in the fuel in the society and all of that? These are the concerns that away from talking, because many government have been talking, many government have been engaging, nothing to really show. Nigerians have nothing to show. This is what is staring on Nigerian faces.
Thank you very much for that. When I say engagement of the young people, for instance, let's take the youth ministry for instance. Government have introduced varieties of policies that directly give succor to the young Nigerians. Okay, we are talking about the youth constituency. We have the student, we have the non-student. For the student, one of the major responsibilities of the student, most of the major headache is how to pay tuition and how to survive on campus. Government came up with a policy of education loan fund. It means if a student is properly educated on how to access this money, the burden of payment of school fees is no longer on him or his parent. Government have provided alternative. And with a condition that when you get job, come and pay back. It's a relief at this time because of the situation we find ourselves. Now, coming to the youth who are not a student, the graduate, or let's say the informal youth.
government came up with ITF. There is one special scheme under ITF that if you are a handwork someone, you can access this training, you'll be funded to expand your business. Likewise, the education loan fund was mandated to also give loan to somebody who want to learn skills, not only education. You know, it's a relief to the youth constituency. Now, they also came up with youth investment fund that if you have a business proposal, put it up, you have access to social amount at lowest interest rate. You know, these are SUKO. But how many young Nigerians are aware of this? They are still doing the same thing they have been doing before the inflation came, which is not profitable enough to cater for their needs, because none of their responsibility has been taken off with this policy government have introduced. So when I say engagement, it does not connote that just talking to people. Let us know what the government have done to actually help us. At this time, we all know that we are paying sacrifice. Government has also putting some things to help us. We want to see those things. I'm just telling you the reason why there's a justification for rejigging Ministry of Youth, because that's where the tension is coming from. Let me tell you, if youth concern is not properly managed, nowhere will function in this country. If people are just putting eye on petroleum, even the major of the insecurities. Have you seen a kidnapper anytime the police apprehend anyone that is above 50 years? Is it not the young people? Have you seen a armed robber that is 70 years old? Is it not the young people? If you're able to comfort the young people of this country, 75% of our problem is solved. So emphasis should be on the youth constituency. Now, when you get this thing done, you have a rest of mind. Okay, look at it. I read through a news. There is a threat that started coming from the Niger Delta that we were going to burn the oil pipe. If that happens, it's not economic saboteur. It's being executed by who? It's in the young people. So at times people should not put attention on secondary. Let us address the primary problems. Now, looking at the ministries, the Mr. President has actually rejigged recently. Take for instance, the Ministry of Humanitarian and Disaster Management. It's one of the prominent ministries that ought to have been functional to help Nigerians in this period. But when there was an issue with the former minister, who has been placed on suspension, you know, definitely a suspension has hindered a lot of interventions of government for more than about 5 or 6 months now. Nobody is in the office. It's being run by the permanent secretary. So if Mr. President now going to that area as well, fix somebody into that ministry, are you telling me it's not a priority? At this time, we must understand the fact that I'm a prominent member of the opposition, and I must tell you, I don't play politics until it's the 3rd year of the government. I don't play politics on the 3rd year of the administration, because that is when the politics starts. But for the first, 2nd year, everybody should reason like a citizen. Everybody should speak like a citizen.
So if Nigerians have described President Tinubu on social media as T-Pen, Bayo Onanuga just yesterday has said that the president is not T-Pen, but he understands the pains of Nigerians and that he understands that things are quite going hard. And the question they will continue to ask is, for how long should we exercise this passion?
Yes, I also felt bad for the fact that Mr. President is promising us hope. Our hope will be renewed. Hope is coming. He's doing a lot to help us. And this is 1 year gone. Nothing has actually manifested in the life of the citizen. That is why I'm now telling you that Mr. President should understand that he needs to change approach on the implementation of his policies. He truly, when you see the paper content of his policies or the pronouncements, you truly say this is good, this is fine, this will help. But at the end of the day, you will not see the direct impact on the populace. So it means they must change approach in implementation strategies. That's what I'm also telling you. Nobody said the implementation has favored the citizens. That's why all of us are still agitating. The implementation strategy needs to be reviewed because it does not bring direct impact, expected impact on the economy. Look at how beautiful the government have intervened. Okay, even the CNG that they have introduced, has the transportation cost reduced? No. It means something is wrong.
So these are the critical sectors that Nigerians were looking at if they wanted to reshuffle the cabinet. Does it look that, for instance, the economic team, that those that are having the concern that the problem of this government sometimes it's not just about the sincerity of their policies, of their heart or what, that it's about how people or the team that are advising the president to take on this policy. They have also blamed that you can't continue to tax Nigerians now. When you look at the issue of electricity tariff that was recently increased, we can also float naira, remove subsidy, all at the same time. That there is so much of hurry to tax Nigerians. There's so much of tax on Nigeria to increase the hardship, which is a major concern. That it looks that people that are advising the president are not advising the president on the good direction.
That is the truth. That is the pure truth. That's why you see my statement is Mr. President must change his implementation strategy. And
You think he had one already? He said, "I'll hit the ground running from day one."
Does it look that has not manifested anything good to the citizens?
Does it look that it's something that it will materialize?
That is, except like this cabinet reshuffle, this should not be the best we can have. A lot of ministries also need to be rejigged, like you rightly mentioned. You see the oil sector, for instance. Mr. President needs to relieve himself of the Minister of Petroleum. It is obvious. He does not have that time. They should give an expert from that industry to handle it. You can't imagine in a space of 3 months, fuel price has been hiked 3 times within 3 months. And you expect Nigerians to smile. It is unfair. Minimum wage has not been fully implemented, but cost of living has increased. These are the things I'm trying to let you understand, that the implementation strategy must be addressed. Truly, if the minimum wage that you just approved has been fully implemented, arrears have been paid, and there is need for adjustment of pump price, people have the money already in their pocket. They can happily pull out the money and pay. But you have just pronounced a policy, such as the minimum wage, that even because the first set of Nigerians that can testify to implementation of minimum wage is youth corps.
I mean, honorable.
Is it not? But yet they have yet to confirm that they have started taking minimum wage. But immediately pronouncement of that minimum wage was said by Mr. President, we saw twice PMS price hike. That is what I'm referring to, that Mr. President must change implementation strategy.
When you said change, when you said change of implementation, the strategies, that those that will ask, should it mean going back on the subsidy? Should it mean that this is how the president can probably subsidize for the poor and allow the rich to buy at the normal price? Because those that also have an argument that, see, we can't take out policy. I mean, we cannot take out subsidy completely. That the poor will always have, the heat of the day. Is it possible to manage that?
To be candid with you, with what we have heard from every political structures before the election and during the election and after the election, obviously, policy subsidy is not sustainable for our economy.
But the way we are as a country today,
where we are now,
don't you think
what we need is not the subsidy per se? There are indirect subsidy that government can introduce to stabilize us. You understand? One of it is that the government must revisit, because lately we heard from Falano that even the contracts awarded for the repair and the revival of the refineries were not cash backed. I don't know if you had that revelation. The refinery needs to be taken care of immediately. If the refinery start working, like Port Harcourt, we were told Port Harcourt will start working by October, government need to be sincere and proactive in policy that will actually bring succor. If you have 3 functional refineries, Dangote is there, Kaduna is working, Warri is working, Port Harcourt is working. Surely, if the refining of crude is happening here, the price will stabilize the more. There can even be drop in the pump price, because like they said, the material will not determine, the market force will determine the price. But when we have 3 refineries producing in the country, these are the subsidy we actually require. Because if you look at all these palliative the government is introducing, but you sum it together, it does not make sense. It's even more than the subsidy we are complaining about. You see the rice intervention, every 3 months you are releasing greens from National Reserve, you are giving 10,000 to market woman, but you sum all this money together, is almost to the subsidy we are paying. It does not make sense. So government must look at a long-term solution, a sustainable solution to our problem. All this they are giving is temporary. And like I said, when I said change of approach, government don't implement action before an action has been done. like this policy of minimum wage, let it be practical. Let it, the full implementation take its course before any other thing comes. You understand what I mean? You mentioned that everybody, the minimum wage is now 70,000. But people have yet to take this money. Pump price has been hiked twice. The NSC also made the revelation that in the course of the negotiation, they were told that they will hike the pump price. He said no, they cannot hike the pump price. That's why they settled for that 70,000. Even when you agree that you are not going to hike the pump price, minimum wage does not yet get to people's pockets. You have increased the pump price. You know, these are actually what is bringing about the hardship on the Nigerian citizen. So, President must understand this fact.
All right.
He needs two things from my perspective. Firstly, a very working synergy with the state governors, so that governors must understand the fact that it is not infrastructure that are critical. We want to build bridge. That is our priority now. What can we do to promote our economy such that if it is agricultural that your state can invest reasonably into, that is what you should use your allocation to do, so that you can know how to recirculate that money within the economy. Take for instance in my state, we borrowed 37 billion for development. My governor went and used it to build a bridge. The bridge was constructed, it failed the test, integrity test by the engineers, it has not been put to use now. Look at how many billions that was seated idle. Imagine this money was put into farm project, for instance. We must have harvested twice. Sell the proceed, make a profit, provide food for the state. You get me? The government must understand there is a priority now. It is not about we want to build bridge, we want to do all these white elephant projects. No. Let us look at what
look at the lives of the people that they are
how
governing.
can you boost
because
the economy?
government is existing for the people.
For the people. If there's no citizens,
Alright.
we will enjoy the facilities. But our governor's attention is always, I want to reconstruct road, I want to reconstruct bridge.
Maybe for their second term negotiation.
You imagine when you invest in human development, when people are smiling, you say to yourself that things are working. Now, we have been talking about our economy, we are consuming more than we are producing. How many states has opened new factory in the last 1 year? Except from Nasarawa State that brought about this lithium plant and Kaduna State. How many states has also joined to bring 1 or 2 companies that can actually boost the economy? This is the direction you ought to be thinking about. You take a bogus allocation in Abuja, you just go back to your state. What is viable that we can put money to, that will generate employment, generate forest, generate a lot of things that will make the life better.
Thank you.
Not that you took a bogus allocation here, you
Thank
go
you.
to we need another flyover. Is it not people that have eaten that will fly the bridge?
Thank you so much, Honorable Sadudeen Lukman, the PDP chairmanship candidate of Offa local government area in Kwara State. Thanks so much for your insight on the program tonight. The government is existing for the people, a concern on how the policies of the president, the cabinet reshuffling, and the moves and the policies and how this is going, the path the president is taking Nigerians to is still a major concern. We'll go on a very quick break, and once we return, our guests will join us to add voice to this conversation still on that Tinubu's presidency. Do stay with us on the program. I'll be right back.